Please be seated. Welcome. On behalf of Wendy, Rachel, Jared, Andrew, and Paul's extended family, I welcome you to this time of remembrance and celebration of the life of Paul. Your presence here is important to those, and for those watching on live stream, you're all important to Paul's family. The family has prepared a very short video highlighting some of their favorite moments and times with Paul. And I ask you now to turn your attention to our large screen and take in these precious moments. Those are amazing memories. And no doubt they brought many memories back to you. Today we're here to remember and celebrate Paul. During the next little while, we're going to hear more about this amazing husband, father, and friend, and many memories to be shared. Some of those memories may cause us to cry a little. Hopefully more will make us laugh and smile. As we go through this, don't be afraid to show your emotions as we're celebrating the life and memories of Paul. And it's an honor for me to be here to be part of it. It's important today that we have stopped and taken the time to acknowledge the importance of Paul's life and how he touched yours. Your presence here is a testament to his life, whether you knew Paul personally or you're here to support his loved ones. Thank you for being here. Earlier this week, I had an opportunity to learn a little bit more about Paul when I had a conversation with Wendy and Rachel. And there's going to be much more said about him when other speakers come up. But let me share just a few things that I learned and perhaps we saw on the screen. Paul was born in Belfast, Ireland, and christened Michael Paul Francis. At the tender age of 4, Paul and his family immigrated to Canada. He lived most of his early years in the Greater Toronto area. As a teenager, he took up scuba diving and enjoyed it so much that he became an instructor. As a young man, he entered the emergency medical care attendant program at Humber College and had a long career as a paramedic and level 3 paramedic with the Toronto Emergency Services. Paul was the recipient of the Governor General's Emergency Services Exemplary Service Medal. This isn't given out to everyone. This honor recognizes professionals in the provision of pre-hospital emergency medical services to the public who have performed their duties in an exemplary manner, characterized by good conduct, industry, and efficiency. To receive this award, Paul had to complete 20 years of exemplary service, including at least 10 years in the performance of duties involving potential risk. Paul demonstrated his exemplary service many times and retired from the Toronto Emergency Services in 2015 after dedicating 32 years of service. As we have seen, Paul was an adventurer and he was self-taught. He learned his skills by reading and watching others. He and Wendy were true sailors, enjoying the waters of Georgian Bay on a variety of sailboats, ranging from 27 to 38 feet in length. He enjoyed traveling to warm climates. He hiked, bicycled, and it was a true loving husband and father. Paul had a great sense of humor that even in his darkest days brought life to everyone he loved. There is obviously much more to the life of Paul that will be shared now by family members and friends, and I would like to start with them by having Michael Bernard, who is Paul's nephew, who's going to come and deliver the eulogy.
So I just like to, these things are always easier in concept than they are in reality, especially sort of, look at my uncle's life and seeing it before me. I'd like to begin by thanking everybody for being here today to celebrate the life of Paul Lynagh. I'm Michael, I'm his first nephew, and I've been asked today to speak the words of Paul's immediate family, his wife Wendy, his children Rachel and Jared. It's a great honor for me to be able to do so. Paul was a person in my life that I had the utmost respect for. Respect for who he was and how he lived his life. So thank you. I'm very blessed to have the opportunity to speak for you and about this amazing guy. Your husband, your father, and my Uncle Paul. Paul was known for his great sense of humor, his love for adventure and compassionate nature. He was a devoted husband and father and loved spending time with his family and his friends. He dedicated his career to helping others in need. Paul was truly a remarkable man who made a positive impact on everyone who was fortunate enough to have known him. As it was said, he was born in Belfast in Ireland in 1958, emigrated to Canada with his parents, his sisters Debbie and Frances, at the age of 4. His sister Shelley and brother Peter were born here in Canada. So Paul grew up in a full house of siblings. And being that there are only like 16 years between Paul and I can remember that household as a child. A lot of fun, chaos, and certainly some very interesting characters, to say the least. Paul's early life was filled with family and fun and adventure. His family consisted of a number of camping enthusiasts, including his parents and Aunt Maisie and Uncle Ray. Many summers were spent camping at Algonquin Park, where Paul and his siblings explored the outdoors. As a child, Paul was fascinated by wildlife and nature. He was always on the hunt for bugs, snakes, and frogs. But he would gently pick them up, these creatures, to inspect them, and always respectfully put them back unharmed. He learned from a young age from his gentle-natured father to respect the world and all its creatures. He carried on this tradition of camping with his friends when he grew older, and eventually with his wife and children. When Paul got older, his interest in the outdoors became focused on the water. He learned to scuba dive and snorkel so he could better explore what the lakes and oceans had to offer. Paul taught his sister Debbie how to scuba dive and snorkel, and they went diving in Tobermory in Florida. She was always amazed at how comfortable he was in the water, as you could see. While diving, Paul would often collect fishing lures for his younger brother Peter's tackle box collection. He loved to ski as well and taught his sister Shelley how to ski with him on a trip to Dorset. Paul was always sort of like a mischievous kind of like to have fun with people. And so on a skiing trip one time, he convinced his brother to go on a very steep mogul run that he had no business being on. And knowing Pete, this is true, no business. Paul went down the run like a pro and waited. Peter barely made it down, bouncing all over the moguls with Paul laughing his butt off at the bottom. I can see it. Paul and his siblings loved pranks. One time, Paul and Debbie took their grandmother's beaver fur coat. I don't even know who would ever own one of those, and wore it in a way that looked similar to a bear. They proceeded to sneak into Frances's bedroom, and after she had gone to bed, and spooked her. Paul and Debbie were subsequently grounded, as was, and I know personally was the custom in my grandparents' home. But groundings in their house never lasted long. It's true, they were pushovers. This was around the same time Frances and Paul were playing Three Musketeers with fishing rods, and Frances actually stabbed Paul in the neck, and he had to be rushed to the hospital. Thankfully, Paul was okay, and Frances was found hiding in a closet when they arrived home. This is going to come to as a shock to some people, but Paul once owned a pimped-out van known as the Van. And maybe not, considering some of the haircuts you saw in the pictures, but it was black and had flames on the side, as well as those tiny bubble-tinted windows, the little ones, creepy little ones, in the back, and mag wheels, a shag carpet on the floor and on the dashboard, and a bed in the back, which I, as a child, I just thought that was cool because you could jump on it, but it's kind of a little bit disturbing thinking back. I remember this. I spent some time as a kid in this van, and it had a certain odor to it. Looking back, it was probably the toxic fumes from the cheap polyester shag dashboard carpet. It was slowly chemically deteriorating from baking in the heat as the sun rays came through the windshield. It was the perfect cliche of the late 70s, early 80s cool guy. And that's what he was. Paul used to drive his siblings to school in this van with its broken radiator that leaked. His sister Shelley would have to hop out of the van on the way to school to collect water out of a nearby ditch for the radiator in order to keep it going so they could get to school. While most would look back on these memories of such things and cringe at themselves, deep down, I'm sure Paul always thought that that man was cool and that back in the day, he was the man. In fact, watching Paul when everyone, because it was kind of a thing that we would bring up every once in a while, just try to embarrass him. He would laugh at himself, but you could see from the look in his eye and the way he would bite his bottom lip that he was thinking, yeah, man, I was the man, reminiscing on the whole thing. Paul was always admired by his siblings for his even-keeled, easygoing nature and his ability to teach himself anything he put his mind to. So true of him. He completed the Humber College Emergency Medical Care Attendant program and began to work as a paramedic with Metro Toronto Ambulance in 1983, which is probably the same time he cut his hair and went from looking like he was a member of a prog rock band to looking more human. There's some pretty famous Lynagh family photos, and you guys have seen them. I guess the hair was just kind of the package deal with the van, to be honest with you. He studied and trained over the years to eventually achieve the level 3 advanced life support status. Paul enjoyed working with all of his colleagues, particularly his partner of many years, Paul McDonough. And from the many tributes and memories left on the memorial website for Paul, it is clear that his co-workers really enjoyed and cherished working with him. In his career, he encountered various types of calls, ranging from getting slapped by an old lady, to being the first responder on the scene with his partner Don Reed in the Toronto subway crash in 1995. I actually remember seeing Paul on the front page of the Toronto Sun and basking in the idea that my uncle was this heroic first responder guy. It was a great action shot. Despite working a stressful and difficult job, Paul always demonstrated a great sense of humor and kindness to his patients and colleagues. He retired in 2015 after 32 years of service. Paul met his wife Wendy on St. Patrick's Day Eve in 1985. And I say Eve, which is probably a good thing because I'm not sure that the Irish are really in any good shape to meeting people on St. Patrick's Day. So we could probably consider the timing of this meeting of the hearts the luck of the Irish, because Paul certainly found his person in Wendy. They got engaged 4 months later, but because it seemed too soon, they waited until the 6-month mark to tell everybody. I guess when you know, though. Paul and Wendy were married for 35 years. He was Wendy's rock and a pillar of strength. He was the strongest man she has ever known. He loved Wendy dearly and made sure to tell her every day. In fact, no matter how sick Paul got, he would still find a way to make her laugh. They enjoyed doing everything together, from driving to watch the sunset, sitting in the hot tub, having a campfire together, to holding hands while walking in the forest. They enjoyed taking trips together, and Paul would seek out the most wonderful adventures at every island they went to. On one trip to the Big Island in Hawaii, he told Wendy that they were going to do a night snorkel to see manta rays. Wendy told him that there was no way that she was going to, I can just hear the conversation. There's no way that she was going into the ocean dark at night. But Paul, being the type of guy that was never easily dissuaded, quickly pulled up a YouTube video. And I can imagine him doing this, because he was always the guy who was always like, there's something about Paul, right, where if you were unsure about a situation, he had a way of making you sure about it, even if there was an instinct within yourself that you knew that he wasn't sure, really. So he pulled up a YouTube video of these beautiful manta rays swimming gracefully in the dark ocean, and Wendy was sold. That adventure was the highlight of both of their lives. Paul and Wendy had their first child, Rachel, in 1988. It's kind of a big difference. And their second, Jared, in 1991. Paul loved being a father and was very involved, so involved that he would dress up and participate in tea parties with the kids. He was always patient and calm with his children, even when Rachel would dress up, their golden retriever, in all of Paul's clothing, including socks and underwear. He taught Rachel and Jared many of the activities he enjoyed himself, so they could do them together as a family. He encouraged the whole family to do things such as camping, canoeing, mountain biking, playing squash, and even taekwondo. He was just like a guy that was just like nonstop, like activity, right? It's awesome. He was a man of many hobbies and talents. He was an avid sailor, skier, hiker, snorkeler, biker, and scuba diver. He lived to explore the outdoors with his adventurous spirit. In his early years, Paul and his friends and wife enjoyed windsurfing on Lake Simcoe. He went on to take on sailing and taught himself, Wendy, their kids, and friends how to sail. It was always a highlight, I can tell you, for me, of the summer trips to go and spend time with Wendy and Paul on their boat. It wasn't just being on a boat, which is awesome in all itself, but it was also being around those two people, right, together. Together they're a great joy to be around, just good people. And perfectly matched in nature, temperament, and just peace that they brought everybody. They enjoyed many years as a family sailing around Georgian Bay with their pugs. At one point, Paul and Wendy moved their sailboat to the British Virgin Islands so they could live out their retirement. So Paul could live out his retirement really as a pirate. I'm sure Wendy wasn't really on board with that, literally and figuratively. I mean, the pirate side of it. Paul loved to travel, whether it be Caribbean cruise, Cape Hatteras, or his favorite, Hawaii. He was fascinated by the ocean and loved spotting marine wildlife. Seeing dolphins, whales, sea turtles, and even sharks always brought a smile to his face, and he would excitedly call everyone over to see them as well. One time in Cape Hatteras, Paul and Rachel spotted a 2-foot-long shark being washed ashore on the beach. Paul quickly ran out of the beach house and over the dunes. He picked up the shark and gently placed it in the water and helped him swim away. Just the kind of person he was. Always helping anyone in need, including apparently a shark. He had a great passion and respect for the environment and wildlife and shared that with everyone around him. Paul was always the voice of reason. He consistently remained calm, even in tense and stressful situations. He was the anchor in the lives of those who were close to him. So true. I remember just being in times of a little bit of distress myself and just something about what that guy radiated just put you at ease and give you a sense of sureness and ground beneath you, right? It wasn't fake. It wasn't manufactured. It was just who he was. It was genuine. It was part of his soul and his being. Paul approached life with a wonderful sense of humor. Even in his last few days, he had everyone around him laughing, including the nurses and the doctor. Despite this profound loss, we must honor Paul's memory by living our lives in the way that would make him happy and proud. Have adventures, travel, love, laugh, and enjoy what this world has to offer. Nothing can replace what Paul brought to our lives. Sorry. But possibly we can find some solace in cherishing the memories he left with us and the lessons we learned from him. Paul, thank you for being the best husband, father, brother, uncle, and friend. For all that we're blessed to know you, we will carry your memory in our hearts the rest of our own lives. You will be missed a great deal. Paul, we love you.
Michael, that was very heartfelt and thought-provoking. And you added a bit of humor to it as well, which was nice. And the mention of the van, the old shaggin' wagon, as many of us older people would have referred to it as, is great. And the hair, I can remember those things myself, so that's okay. Rachel and Jared?
Okay. I'm very fortunate to be Paul's daughter. He was truly the best dad. I always looked up to him and strived to follow in his footsteps. I thought my dad being a paramedic was so cool growing up, and I was proud to tell everyone what he did. I went into nursing to be just like him. He helped me through nursing school, and we'd often discuss all things medical. He even took me on ride-alongs in his ambulance a few times, and I thought to myself, my dad and his partner Paul are the coolest guys ever. I also learned to scuba dive because my dad and his father used to dive together, and I wanted to continue that tradition with my dad. My dad loved to teach others skills, particularly ones he had never performed himself. He was a brilliant man with the capability to learn how to do anything just by reading and watching videos. When snowboarding became popular, my parents bought us all snowboards, and my dad spent hours on the internet learning how to snowboard. We went to the ski hill, and he taught us all how to snowboard from his skis. He taught us first before even getting on a snowboard yet himself. When the time came for him to get on a board, he got the hang of it right away. I will miss the way he used to save me from spiders, and one time a scorpion in the US Virgin Islands. He never killed them and always caught them and set them free. I will miss him watching CNN constantly and talking to me about news stories and politics. He always told me I'm crazy for not having cable, and how do I know what's going on in the world? I will miss how good he was with my rescue dog Finnegan, despite his tendency to occasionally lose my dog. One time in Cape Hatteras, my dad was in the pool teasing Finn. Finn got so riled up he ran around the pool multiple times and then jumped over a 5-foot fence, and then we all had to chase after him through cactus plants. Another time he was playing in the backyard with Finnegan on leash in the snow, and he got him all riled up again, and Finn started spinning around in circles and then ran away and ran wild through the neighborhood in Midland. Thankfully, my mom knew how to lure Finnegan back each time. He taught me to respect nature and the environment. He taught me to be adventurous and explore the outdoors. He taught me to treat others with compassion and kindness, even the tiniest of creatures like spiders. He taught me to approach life with good humor. He taught me how to be a better nurse. I hope to pass on these values to my future children and give them the same love and happy childhood that my dad gave me. Thank you for everything, Dad, and I love you. And thank you all for being here today.
Thank you all for coming out today in honor of my dad, Paul. What is a dad? A dad is someone you look up to, someone you admire, someone to follow, someone to listen to and someone to talk to, someone to learn from and respect, sometimes to rebel against, but most of all, someone with whom to share everything this life has to offer. I'm very fortunate to be Paul's son. I could not have asked for a better father and role model. He lived every day to the fullest and was always eager to share his passions, which is something I admired. He was constantly active and loved the outdoors, rain or shine, and in any season. He was an avid sailor and biker in the summer and skier in the winter. Some of the many activities we bonded over and I hold close to my heart. A few years ago, I remember going for a bike ride with my dad in Midland along the waterfront. I teased him about whether he would be able to keep up with me until we actually started biking. And that over 60 years old, that man could outbike me. I kept quiet after that day. He never let it down. My dad was the kind of person to give you the shirt off his back. He was honest, humble, respectful, compassionate, rational, calm, fair, and selfless. Some of the many attributes we all aspire to have. And I believe it's rare to find someone with a quality of character that he possessed. The best moments in life are the ones you take for granted until they've passed, and you reflect on. Your presence in my life was a gift, and I will cherish the memories of you always. I love you, Dad.
Thank you, Rachel and Jared. Those are touching memories. Going to call upon Sandy, one of Paul's friends, to come forward.
Thank you very much. I appreciate having the honor of sharing a few memories. My wife Betty Ann and myself are fortunate to be Paul and Wendy's neighbors and good friends. I'd like to take a few moments and share some of these memories with you. And we'll try to hold it together as well, Michael. We all have the trouble when we're up here. About 6 years ago, my wife and I decided it was time to retire. So we listed our 4-bedroom family home in Oakville and started looking for a new one. As we were campers and boaters, we decided to look north. We looked at Huntsville. We did a lot of camping there. Gravenhurst, Bracebridge, they were all on the water. And we looked at Midland. I had family living here and had a couple friends. We'd always wanted to get a boat. We had one when we were in our 20s. When our second child came along, it was a choice. Boat, bigger house. Which one won out? Bigger house, of course. And I had to give up my boat. So we started looking at homes in Midland and Penetang. What better place to cruise than the 30,000 Islands? We looked at homes being built in the Aberdeen Riverwalk area. We selected a model that had everything we were looking for. Unfortunately, it didn't have any model homes. My wife suggested, well, we'd cruising around the streets and we saw the model that we wanted. And my wife suggested we knock on the owner's door to see if they could show us around. I was hesitant to disturb them, but Betty Ann convinced me. So we knocked on the door. Well, this lovely couple, Paul and Wendy, welcomed us in. They gave us a complete tour and answered all our questions. Little did we know that we would soon become great friends. This little saying is something I said that says it all the best. Neighbors by chance, friends by choice. So we put an offer in on the lot 3 doors down. We would have been get the lot right next door, but unfortunately somebody else had put an offer in the day before. Darn it. So we started to build our home. Paul and Wendy became our on-site eyes and ears. We were still living in Oakville, but they would call us regularly and talk about what updates we're doing, what the construction was doing and how it was moving along. Always there looking out for us. Grateful. Now that our home was underway, we started to look for a sailboat. Having quickly learned that Paul and Wendy were longtime sailors, they volunteered to help us look. They were excited to think that they would get a chance to visit marinas in Ontario and the northeastern US. Road trip. We had set our sights on a Catalina 350 as the best boat for our needs. Paul and Wendy had owned a Catalina 380, so they were familiar with the brand, big enough to handle what Georgian Bay could throw at us and all the features we could possibly want. We found one in Whitby, so Paul and Wendy hopped in their car and met me at the marina. Paul took on the mechanical and rigging review. Wendy went and stuck her head in all the cupboards, nooks, and crannies looking for dirt and mold. She was relentless with this. The seller offered to take us sailing so we could check out the sails and the rigging. Well, that sealed the deal. Paul and Wendy said this was our boat. No sense in looking any further. So we put in an offer and planned to ship the boat to Midland in October. Of course, at that time of year, it's time to cover the boat up. And again, Paul and Wendy were right there helping to put the cover on. And they were there in the spring to take the cover off. In the spring, we had to move the boat to a different marina. Of course, Paul and Wendy were right there to assist. As we backed the boat out of the marina, we found out the forward gear didn't work. Of course, as the owner, I'm going, oh my God, what happened here? I had no idea what the problem was. But Paul was right there. He took the helm station apart and found the forward gear cable had stuck. Paul quickly fixed it, and we were on our way to our new marina. We spent many a day with Paul and Wendy cruising the islands, enjoying Wendy's famous egg salad sandwich. In the fall of 2019, we got a call from Paul and Wendy one night asking if we would be interested in joining them for a week-long trip to Hawaii. We had no plans of going anywhere, so we said we'd consider it. Wendy invited us to come over and plan it. They'd been there a few times, so they became the trip planners and the tour guides. Well, 1 week turned into 3. I mentioned the only part I didn't like was the long plane ride. Wendy's solution? Well, we'll stop in LA for 4 days, the end of the trip, and they'd be a tour guide again and show us all the sights. That trip was booked for February and March of 2020. You may all remember what that date was. At the end of the Hawaii part of the trip, we were sitting in the airport on the Big Island, waiting for our flight to Los Angeles, when we heard about the COVID virus and our Prime Minister telling us to come home. Well, we still could. And we had quite a discussion on that, as will we be able to. Out came Paul's laptop. 4 seats from LA to Toronto were booked for the next day. We would deal with getting a refund on our hotel rooms when we got back home again. An interesting end to a great trip with great friends. Paul and Wendy were always there. When we were away, they would be constantly checking on the boat for us. One of our goals in moving to Midland was to take a cruise on our boat to the North Channel. That's that world-renowned cruising area between Manitoulin Island and the north shore of Georgian Bay. COVID had prevented us from doing anything during the pandemic. The summer of 2022 looked like it could work. Paul suggested we plan on stopping at Parry Sound. That way he and Wendy could join us for an afternoon to go sailing on Parry Sound, and they could tell us all about great anchorages and dockages. It was here that we found out that Paul kept his cell on 24/7, just in case we needed to reach him. Quite the guy. Our next stop was to sail across Georgian Bay to a small anchorage on the top of Bruce Peninsula called Wingfield Basin. It's a beautiful anchorage surrounded by low hills, making it a very secure anchorage. It also had no cell phone coverage. This would turn out to be an issue. When we got into the basin, after a beautiful calm trip across the bay, we set about dropping our anchor. Well, we got a surprise when the anchor chain started to run out nonstop. I was able to put my foot on it to stop it. With the help of another boater, we were able to bring up the 100 feet of chain and the anchor and secure it. Not having any idea what was wrong, we decided to motor over to Tobermory, about a 2-hour trip, to get it fixed. We couldn't work without having an anchor. When we got out into Georgian Bay, we got cell service again. And Paul was calling us to find out how the crossing was. This is Paul. He was calling to make sure we got across the bay fine. After we explained what happened with our anchor, Paul informed us that our flange had come unloose. Of course, my next response was, what's a flange? I learned it was the round disc on the top of the anchor windlass that had 4 slots in it. It was designed to allow the anchor to be dropped quickly should the need arise. Maybe you just simply had to get secure very quickly. Paul told me to look for a metal rod. Sure enough, there was one in the navigation station. I'd noticed it before, but I really didn't know what it was for. I figured sooner or later I'd find out. Well, I did. So with a quick corner turn of the top disc, we're back in business. So back in Wingfield Basin for a quiet night at anchor. Paul to the rescue again. So nice to have my own personal maintenance man. He really was a mentor with everything to do with sailing. He taught us an awful lot. Boating is like living and learning. Paul was a great teacher, enjoyed being part of the crew. He was always there to advise and help. I'm going to get through this part here. Paul, we know you're in heaven, sailing your 42 dream sailboat. May you have fair winds and calm seas. Rest in peace, my friend. You are sorely missed. I also wanted to let everybody know that my wife and I will be arranging to have a tree planted in Paul's honor in the memorial forest of the Arboretum at the University of Guelph. It's a tradition we do with all of our family, and Wendy, they'll send you a certificate when it is there. So it can be remembered. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Those are heartfelt memories of a great neighbor. Frank, another one of Paul's friends, is going to come and talk.
My name's Frank Carlisle, and I was Paul's best man at his wedding, and one of his best friends. I've known him for a long time, over 40 years. And I think we've all heard the words, the adjectives that describe Paul. It's thoughtful, he was kind, adventurous, fun, inquisitive, and very supportive. That's just what Paul was. I met Paul when I was 20 years old, so it was a long time ago. At college, and Martin, who's Paul's brother-in-law, I'd gone to school previously at college with Martin, and he, when I decided to change careers to become a paramedic, he mentioned that his brother-in-law, or future brother-in-law at that point, was in the same course. So the first day of school, it's the first break, we were like kindergarten kids, we ran together, and will you be my friend, will you be my friend? And both of us were born in Belfast, so we became Belfast buddies, and that was the beginning of a very long and close friendship. We, after college, we became paramedics, ambulance emergency care attendants, and then eventually paramedics with Metropolitan Toronto, and then later on in the city of Toronto. And we traveled together. The one trip we went on was a 10-day scuba diving trip to Florida, the Florida Keys. And you can imagine there's 3 of us, another paramedic, Greg Armstrong, and myself and Paul. 3 good-looking guys at Camaro. And there's one funny story I was going to tell, but actually I don't think I should. It's probably not appropriate, so I'll let that go. Yeah. And then Paul and I, we shared an apartment together, and that's where he met Wendy. The one story I will tell, it involves Martin as well. Paul decided to have a party, invite all the friends and so forth, and it wasn't a huge party, but he decided he wanted to invite or have a professional DJ with all his equipment. And unfortunately, we didn't think of inviting the neighbors. Actually, we probably had to invite the whole apartment. So thanks to Martin, we got a letter the next day coming very close to evicting us. It was a loud party. So close, but it's yeah. And Paul and I, he continued on being a paramedic. We were partners actually when I applied to the fire department and I got into the fire department. I switched careers, but we always remained very, very close. And you mentioned about Wendy. He met Wendy while we were living together. I still remember that. And I thought it was St. Patrick's Day, but it was the day before. That's right. So it was St. Patrick's Day. And it was, yeah, love at first sight, and I'm sure several Guinness thrown in there as well. Oh, you weren't drinking? Yeah. That's not the story he told me, but anyway, I won't go there. And Paul and I our lives grew before kids and after kids. That's before we did some trips, camping trips to North Carolina. We both windsurfed. And then the kids came along, and we continued doing some trips and just kept in touch. And did a lot of biking together and so forth. Life was good. Life was really, really good. And through it all, I could see Paul, his enjoyment of life, and as I said before, his kindness, his adventurousness, but also his admiration of his family, like Wendy and Rachel and Jared. That just goes without saying. Like, he just loved you guys dearly. But good friends, we go through good times and we go through bad times. And there have been a few, but that's what friends do. You stick together and you get through it. So Paul's first bout with cancer, it was, we were there visiting, and it was always admired the courage that he showed, and just his attitude, his positive attitude. He would not let it get himself down, which was good for us to see, because years later, my wife got cancer, my past wife, and Paul, with his empathy and his advice, came in very, very handy. It was, but she was able to see how courageous he was and how he just enjoyed life, and I always thank him for that. And here we are today. We're celebrating Paul's life. When my father moved back to Belfast and he passed away there, we had a wake. And in Ireland, it really is a celebration of life. It's more of a celebration. Yes, there's tears and there's sadness, but it's a real emphasis on that celebration, and lots of Guinness to go along with that, which helps. Here in Canada, we spend several hours doing this. In Ireland, it was several days doing that. It was a long send-off, and that's what they call it. It's a good send-off. And it's so we've listened to all the memories, and we'll always have those memories. And Paul knew that life would continue, whether he was here or not, and I know that life will continue if I'm here or not, and that's the way it is. And that's you have to grasp life and enjoy. This is a good reminder to enjoy every moment. So I'll always remember Paul's smile, his laugh, storytelling, his adventures, and his inquisitive spirit. I love you, my friend. God send. Thanks.
Thank you, Frank. Our last speaker is going to be Debbie, Paul's sister. Who'd like to speak about family life and on behalf of his siblings.
All together. This is us. My brother, my husband, my sister Shelley, my sister Frances. Hello to all who have come here today to celebrate and honor Paul's life. A great thank you to those who have traveled from afar to be here. It is not lost in any way to us as a family of your efforts to be here with us in our time of need. My name is Deborah. I am Paul's older sister. We were 11 months apart, Irish twins, as some people would be said to say. I am also joined here with my remaining siblings in the order of birth: Catherine Mary Frances, Lynagh, Esther Michelle Lynagh, and Peter Colin Gerard Lynagh. A lot of people don't know, but Paul is predeceased by our sister Elizabeth Sharon Lynagh and Mark Francis Lynagh. Michael Paul Francis Lynagh, our brother, born in Ireland on a very stormy night, according to our late mother. The moment he was born, the storm broke. I mention this as my brother was always noted for having a very calm nature. Paul, you seem to have that settling effect from your very beginning. I remember the early days in Ireland as young children, just prior to emigrating to Canada. One particular Christmas there, spent playing with spinning tops our mother had provided us. My brother and I having competitions to see whose spinner would die out first. Time spent with our grandmother, Sarah McDowell, on my mother's side, our grandfather, Michael Lynagh, on our father's side. Not to mention the many other relatives from our Irish family, of which I still have pictures of, provide many a happy memory of our beginnings. In the early years of our childhood, and having heard many a discussion between our parents, as well as other relatives, it was decided we would emigrate. Now, at first, we were going to go to Australia, but my mother didn't like the idea of spending 3 months, I believe it might have been, maybe longer, in a hospital. That's how they did it in Australia. They kind of told you where you needed to be when you emigrated. And then they thought, well, we'll go to the US. A lot of our family did emigrate to the US, and we have many American relatives there. Ultimately, though, it was Canada which was chosen for chances of a better non-political religious future. I must say that we never look back once having arrived here, and I say that as our future generations seen in our incoming family through growth, marriage, and grandchildren are the testimony to a promising horizon as generations go forward. As a family here in Canada, we took up the grand Canadian pastime of camping every summer. We would partake in this venture with our parents, good friends, known as Uncle Ray and Aunt Maisie. Their children, Patrick and Kevin, along with us, formed the camping pack. It was Kevin who reminded me in an email, we chat back and forth, of a time in Pog Lake where they were under a culvert, and Paul had picked up, of course, again, a sand snake, and he wanted the others to see it. He wanted to study it for a while, which he did, and then he gently let it go. Leeches fascinated him. As Kevin pointed out, there were plenty of those in those northern lakes, and Paul seemed to have no problem touching and removing them for the rest of us. Those days were thoroughly enjoyed until teenagers and young adults. We went on our differing, maturing paths. For my brother at first, it was the waters, as you all know and has been said through the eulogy and through other people's revealing of him. Many don't know, though, that Paul one time wanted to become a marine biologist. Perhaps that's where his love for scuba diving took hold. He taught me how to dive and took me on my first night dive up in Tobermory. We were 60 feet under and we were diving and exploring this old wreck that had sunk there. I was astounded at how natural and at ease my brother was in this element. I'll never forget it. The Jacques Cousteau documentaries we would watch at length. We talk about binge watching. Well, that was it. We all emerge from someone before us, and sometimes we find ourselves in the company of someone from the same cellular group that is special. Be it a close family member or a distant link, extended more perhaps to a cousin, an uncle, or a distant relative, and the person just speaks in their aura of sorts. That person was my brother Paul. He spoke in his own aura. A beautiful spindle of that inclusive thread going its way forward with an integrity of soul. That was my brother Paul. Integrity, whether it be in his career as a level 3 paramedic, a father, a husband, or a decent human being. I want to speak of integrity for just a minute. The meaning of integrity. For my brother, it was truly the true meaning of the state of non-division in oneself, a sovereignty of oneself, the state of being in truth and righteousness, whether alone or in a given situation where the right thing needed to be done. He was 3 for 3. Paul was true, he was calm, compassionate, he was kind. He was a counselor to many, myself included in times of need. He was the rock for his family and extended family, particularly when our parents had passed. He was the light. He was light, for he was not false in any way. He maintained that strength to the end. He held himself through this debilitating disease with dignity, calm, grace, fortitude, and courage. He also kept his dry sense of humor till the very end. When it was his time to say, "I will see you later," he asked for all the family to gather, and we did. It was as though he knew he was leaving. Though we desperately wanted him here with us and trying our very best to aid and hope for stabilizing him, he actually stabled us. He rallied to our need and seemed to get better for just enough for the family gathering and the saying of goodbye, but not gone. It was like an old family time together. He made us laugh, he looked at us, and through us, as though he was seeing you for your soul's sake. That's when you would tear up and look away, because you did not want to lose him or want him to go. That's how much he was greatly loved by those who knew him best. He was that strong man. He was that great man. In and of that, I won't lengthen this. Rather, I will leave you with what I found to be the best of describing our brother Paul. A poem by M.D. Zell Jacques. He is great in every inch, in the way he thinks, his humble manner, his hatred of fear. Discrimination he knows not. Flattery is abhorred a lot. Equity runs his conscience, doesn't bother about any seen or unseen fence. He does what he thinks is good. To none he is ever rude. Enthuses the ones around him to achieve, to dream. Everyone loves him much, since having the presence of such a diamond amid us here is like the rainfall during winter. Let us pray for him to live on. Let not anyone stop his march. Let's go with him and truth search. To our brother Paul, we love you, and love lives and lives on into eternity. In the end, it is nothing more than how much you love. That's what you take with you. You lived through all that love, Paul, in every aspect of your life. Family, friends, co-workers. We love you. We love you, Paul. Be forever in God's loving peace. Our brother Paul. Thank you.
Those memories, especially from the family, are just amazing. It's obvious that there was a lot of love by Paul and for Paul, and that he was an amazing man that did many for others. Thank you for sharing these memories with us. Williams Wadsworth said, "The best part of a person's life are the little unremembered acts of love and kindness." I think we all saw that demonstrated today. Whenever a death occurs, those who remain behind enter into a space and time that is quite out of the ordinary. Whether we recognize this or not, this is a special time, a time that holds potential for healing and insight and understanding that does not come readily in ordinary time. With the death of someone we have known and loved, something in each one of us dies too. We're reminded of the frailties of life and the gifts of our relationships. We become more aware that we live in fragile human bodies. We may come to know a heightened consciousness of what is precious and what is true. Indeed, with the passing of a loved one, we encounter our own immortality. I'm going to take a few moments and talk to you about a song that was recorded in 1965 by the rock group The Byrds. It was very popular at the time, and it was written by Pete Seeger, and it was called Turn, Turn, Turn. Some of the older people in the audience may recognize it. The lyrics for that song go like this. To everything there is a season, a time to every purpose under the heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant, a time to reap that which is planted, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to break down, and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones, a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to gain that which is to get, a time to lose, a time to keep, a time to cast away, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silent and a time to speak, a time of love and a time of hate, a time of war and a time of peace. I'm not a scholar. I'm not someone who can go into the lyrics and figure out what they mean, but there's just a couple of these lines that I think we should share today. A time to be born and a time to die. Paul, throughout his career, saw life and death. He worked tirelessly as a paramedic and helped many mothers give birth, but he also worked diligently to save lives of those who suffered from cardiac arrest or were tragically injured in some other time. A time to plant and a time to reap. Our winter here is almost over. Soon we'll be watching our lawns green up and gardens grow. A few months later, we'll be harvesting from our gardens, enjoying the benefits of labor. For Paul, he planted the seed of public service. Rachel and Jared continue to reap his contributions by servicing in their careers. A time to gain, to which is to get, a time to lose, a time to keep, a time to cast away. Paul was soon to gain a new son-in-law with Andrew. Wendy lost her true love, and Rachel and Jared lost a father who loved them unconditionally. And finally, a time of love, and a time of hate, a time of war, and a time of peace. Wendy and Paul had a love for each other that spanned decades. They had no time to hate other than that terrible disease that Paul so valiantly fought and beat twice. The war is against that same unforgiving disease that many, including Paul, fought and continued to fight, and hopefully in time, there will be a peace when that war has been won. Hopefully we can take comfort knowing that these words have a purpose in our lives. Our time is coming to an end for this formal part of this goodbye remembrance for Paul. Shortly we will say our final goodbyes. Wendy, Rachel, Jared, and Andrew invite you to join them in some food, refreshment, and fellowship immediately following the service upstairs here in the funeral home. There, more memories need to be shared. For those needing assistance, funeral home staff will be quite happy to assist you with the elevator, which is just located down the hall. The family would also like to take time to extend thanks to Mike Melnick, our piper today, Gord Dinsmore, and all the paramedics who came out to honor Paul. I ask that in the days and months to come, I encourage you to keep in touch with the family. Your words of comfort and encouragement are important to them as they move forward with their lives. Thank you again all for being here today. I ask if you can, if you would please stand. Tenderly, loving, and reverently, we commit the spirit of Paul to a more peaceful place. We give thanks for your life and for your 64 years of love, friendship, and memories. We now say farewell, and may you rest in peace. Thank you, Paul, Thank you for your good times. Thank you for your hard work. Thank you for your love and laughter. Thank you for being you. You have filled your niche and accomplished your tasks. You leave this world a richer place than you found it. With great respect, we bid you a final farewell. Continue your journey, Paul, with love of everyone here. Be reunited with family and friends gone before you. You will live on in their hearts of everyone that you touched on earth and while you nurtured them while living on earth. And holding the thoughts of you, Paul, in our hearts means that death ends a life, not a relationship we had with you. Paul, you leave a lasting, loving memories of your short life with all of us, and may you rest peacefully, dear husband, father, sibling, and friend. And finally, the Irish blessing. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. The rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand.
Sail away with me, honey. Put my heart in your hand. Sail away with me, honey, now, now. Sail away with me. What will be, will be. I wanna hold you now, now, now. Crazy skies are wild above me now. Winter howling at my face, and everything I held so dear disappeared without a trace. Oh, all the times I tasted love, never knew quite what I had. Little darling, if you hear me now, never needed you so bad. Spinning round